Hey guys, Brad here. Before we start the show, I want to encourage you all to subscribe to the Millennial Mastermind podcast on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcasting app. It's a great way to make sure that you never miss one of our most recent interviews. And while you're there, please leave a rating or review. It really helps others to find the show. Thanks. In Napoleon Hill's timeless classic, Think and Grow Rich, he defines a mastermind group as the coordination of knowledge and effort between two or more people for the attainment of a definite purpose. In this podcast, that coordination is created between you, me, and our amazing guests. Our definite purpose is achieving extraordinary results in your business and your life. I'm your host, Brad Mulvey. Welcome to the Millennial Mastermind Podcast. Greetings and welcome to the Millennial Mastermind Podcast, the show for entrepreneurial millennials who are looking for the tools, tactics, and inspiration to take your business and your life to the next level. Today's guest is Stephan Harman. Stephan is a fellow Midwesterner and Ohioan with roots in the Dayton area. He is also the co-founder of Fusion, a fast casual restaurant for sushi rolls and bowls with 12 locations in Ohio and counting. Stephan founded Fusion back in 2010 in his early 20s, at a time in life when most of us are starting to realize that college is over and the real world is hard. But I'm personally very excited about this episode because before I even knew who Stephan was or that we had some mutual connections, I knew Fusion was this amazing sushi stop that Callie and I would frequent anytime we were driving through Columbus or Cincy. Aside from great food, they have developed a solid brand with a foundation in sustainability, culture, and customer experience. So without further ado, Stephan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to get into it. And I wasn't exaggerating when I said in the intro there that anytime we were driving through Cincinnati or Columbus, we'd stop. My fiance having gone to school in Dayton, she was familiar with your guys' brand and restaurant, and we were there every chance we could. So I'm excited to hear more about the story and share it with the listeners.
Awesome. Well, no matter where you go, we want to serve you.
Fantastic. So before we get too far down the rabbit hole, I would love for you to just kind of go back and what was the inspiration behind Fusion back when you guys started it in 2010? And how did you get it off the ground as just a group of guys in your early 20s?
Yeah, so it was really the perfect storm. Two of my buddies who happen to be brothers, Zach and Josh Webrin, and I grew up together in Dayton. We go back to the mid '80s, we kind of went through every life experience together. Separated for college, and it was in college that we realized that there was this kind of need for higher quality, higher experience restaurant options on campus, and there really weren't that many options where we were happy to go and eat and proud of what we were eating and really enjoyed the experience. And that coupled with the fact that growing up in Ohio and going to school in Ohio, there really weren't that many sushi options. Graduated college in 2008 in a pretty bad job market, and we did what any kind of college grad with no plan would do, and we moved out to Colorado for 2 years. And it was there that we kind of really learned a little bit about the hospitality industry. We were working in a small ski town, and in that town there was a lot of very high-end dining options, and we kind of blended the two. We were bellman at a hotel, working hospitality, eating good food all the time. Couldn't afford to eat sushi every day, and the grocery store really didn't cut it. So that was kind of the birth of an idea, which became Fusion, and wrote the business plan when we were living in Aspen in a trailer park. And basically said, let's try it. It kind of bridged the gap between fine dining and grocery store sushi. And we wanted to create a place where we were proud to eat, where we could listen to the music that we would want, we could wear the clothes that we wanted to, call it a uniform, and really just learn as much as we can, and serve a product that was constantly improving, getting as much feedback as possible. My partners and I had never worked in a restaurant before, so we kind of came in fresh with a lot of unique ideas, but also with a lot of a lot of open space in our minds of what was possible. So that's kind of how it all started.
That's fantastic. And I think that a lot of people, when thinking of entrepreneurship or starting a business, think that you need to have all of this quality experience in whatever industry that you're going into, and you guys kind of prove that wrong. And another kind of common anecdote that you frequently hear, or at least I have, is that restaurants are one of the top failed businesses. And I'm sure that some of the numbers that I've heard are skewed, but is that something that ever entered your guys' mind when you were looking at starting this thing up, that, the restaurant business is a tough one and we don't know anything about it? Were there any thoughts going through your head like that?
Yeah, I think any entrepreneur, anyone who's trying to start something from scratch is going to have, a little self-doubt at the beginning, a little kind of risk reward assessment in your head. But the reality for us was, if someone says that you can't do something, for me, that's a motivator of how you can do something. And there's no doubt about it, the restaurant industry is tough, but we set out to make it a little bit different, where we kind of weren't dependent on kind of the existing restaurant culture to survive. We really wanted to kind of be what we considered, kind of like the restaurant 2.0, which for us was kind of the next generation of restaurants. I think had we known too much about the restaurant industry, we would have had a clouded brain on kind of the facts on what you hear about restaurant failures, like you mentioned. I don't know if that ever really came into our mind. We just figured out that, hey, we think this could work. Let's try it, and if it does fail, at least we learned something. And I think that's kind of that was our attitude going into it. It was 2 years out of college. We hadn't really started a family or started savings or started much of anything. So we really didn't have anything to lose except for some time that it would take to get things started. And I think that kind of nothing to lose mentality is what inevitably allowed us to even start in the first place.
So for anybody who's listening who doesn't know, your restaurant is a fast casual kind of make your own model, similar to a Chipotle or something like that, where you can walk up and actually pick and customize your meal right on the spot. So there's others out there now. I'm not sure if there were back when you guys started this, that do something similar with sushi, but you talked a little bit how you guys were coming in and you wanted to do this as something different. You wanted to be pretty unique, a unique dining experience. So how do you guys differentiate yourself, maybe back then or even moving forward, now that there might be more competitors than when you first started this up?
I think it really comes back to the brand. We exist. Our mission is to connect people through collaboration, culture, and cuisine. And I think every decision that we make in the restaurant comes back to that. It's who we hire. It's what we serve. It's how we design the restaurants. It's how we communicate to our teams. And with that kind of mission first focus, I think that's really what differentiates us in the industry. We've definitely seen some copycat restaurants come up, even in our own markets. But one of my favorite songs is one of my favorite bands is My Morning Jacket. Jim James has a line in one of his songs. He says, "We're the innovators, they're the imitators." And I think that that inspires me every time I hear it, because we really try to innovate on every little detail. And I think that any business that stops innovating is going to die eventually. It's just a matter of time. So So for us, we see a lot of people coming into the industry that's kind of like an owner operator model. Typically it's, one off, two off, family owned deals. We're really trying to create a brand that has staying power, that can span boundaries, that can go from the East Coast to the West Coast all the way into, the heartland of Ohio. And I think just constant innovation, constant questioning, and really putting the team first, and making sure that we're teaching hospitality, and we're teaching kind of the value of our mission and our values ourselves. And I think that ultimately is what's going to deliver a much better consumer experience for our guests, and probably the most difficult thing to emulate. You just can't really emulate culture.
Yeah, and you guys are really kind of ingrained in that mission, or it's ingrained throughout your business. I mean, you go onto your website and you see pages like mantra, community, beliefs, sushi in schools, like things that you don't typically see for a lot of business websites. So how is that something that you guys kind of lead with, whether, it's bringing on new employees or just from the day-to-day work? How do you keep that top of mind? And what effect do you think that having that mission-driven culture has on your business as a whole?
The mission really serves as an alignment tool. I believe that nobody's going to work for any business if they don't understand why they come to work every day. And for people who stand by our mission and believe in our mission, those are the type of people that will break barriers to achieve the mission. As I said, if people know that they're coming in every day to connect people through collaboration, culture, and cuisine, that's connecting with guests, that's connecting through food, that's connecting with each other. And I think that is really the cornerstone that everything else falls under. We have core values that we live by that really help us drive decision making. But at the end of the day, the decisions that we're making should ultimately serve our guests, serve our teams, and the mission accomplishes that. There's a line in the industry that your front line is your bottom line, and I believe in it. It's if we're collaborating together, if we're connecting together, if we create crew connection between our team members, that will transcend into our guests, to our experience, to the brand. Our brand isn't the logo that you see on our hats. The brand isn't the sign that you see on the side of the road. Our brand is the way we behave. And as a mission-driven company, I think that that kind of helps get the right people on the bus. And if someone doesn't believe in that mission, then they're probably not a great fit for our organization. So we can kind of be more selective on the people that really want to come in and work towards that mission every day.
Yeah, because I'm sure there's times when you have to make decisions that on paper may not necessarily be the best for the bottom line in that moment, but are more targeted towards that mission and stay aligned with who you are as a company. Have you come across that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. One of our big initiatives earlier last year in 2017 was to expand our menu into a bowl line. We did a pretty robust customer survey, kind of learning about our customers, what they wanted, what fell into their dietary habits, and we felt that we could increase our value proposition. We could increase our offering, create more variety on our menu, while maintaining kind of Fusion's core identity, by putting bowls in the restaurants. And last year we got about halfway there. Five of our restaurants began serving them, and then this year we came to the conclusion we need this in all the stores. And I think that serving bowls obviously takes a lot of training. It takes some retrofitting in the restaurants. It takes some R&D. It's been a two-year process, just kind of conceptualizing it. And we're only now getting to the point where we're actually realizing the potential gain and the guest satisfaction of having it. So a lot of time and money was spent up front to get these bowls kind of piloted. And moving into 2018, and specifically next month, we'll have bowls in all of our restaurants. And it's something we're really excited about because we put a lot of work into it. We've gotten a lot of good feedback, and we believe that it's a great addition to creating more variety and more value in our brand and in our company and in our food and in our guest experience.
It's fascinating because you hear from a consumer standpoint, you see that there's a new thing on the menu and you probably don't put too much thought behind it, and you don't realize that this is 2 years in the making.
Yeah.
And there's so much that goes into it from a business decision standpoint to make that seemingly small change on the menu, but in reality, it's a total game changer.
Yeah, I was reading over the weekend, and out of all people, Jeff Bezos was being interviewed, and he said that someone came up to him last quarter and said, "Hey, great work on last quarter's earnings. You really did a great job, and the company's really doing well." And his first reaction was, "Thank you." And his second reaction was, that quarter was already baked in 3 years ago. I was planning that quarter 3 years ago, and what I'm working on now is 2 years in advance, 2020. And I think that's kind of the role that we're playing as leaders in the organization. It's kind of looking around the next turn, trying to figure out what's next, and putting the right team in place to execute on that, and getting the right people on the bus, so to speak, in order to make sure that vision is going to be fulfilled in the best possible way. And so, yeah, it's definitely been a long time coming, but it's been something that we believed in and something we've been working hard on to get ultimately into people's mouths.
Have you and your partners always had that long-term kind of strategic vision, or is that something that came along with experience as you went down this entrepreneurial path and learned along the way?
I like that question because it's our business since day one, we've grown everything internally. We have not brought any outside investment in yet. And so our jobs are constantly changing. When we started the business, we were rolling every sushi roll that came out every day. We really didn't have too much more of a forecasting, view than the next customer. And then we grew really quickly, and we went to, we grew 5 stores in 5 years, and we grew another 5 stores in the next 2 years. And, as that kind of journey went forward, we found that it kind of ebbs and flows. Sometimes you got to think about, how do we get through tomorrow? And, sometimes you got to think about, once we get through tomorrow, what's next? And I think that's always kind of the part that's been top of mind for me, is what's next. And sometimes it's what's tomorrow. Sometimes it's who's the next guest. And sometimes it's, what are we trying to achieve 5 years from now? And I don't think it's a mindset that has always been that way. I think it comes down to timing. And I think that the process of growing a business and growing a team is very fluid. And sometimes you have to put on your accountant hat, and sometimes you have to put on your marketer's hat, and sometimes you have to put on your sushi chef hat. But I view it as fluid in that kind of the path to success isn't necessarily linear, either graphically or mentally.
So as you talk through that, it just makes me think of how much of a journey this whole concept of entrepreneurship is, and really a journey not only of learning new skills and putting on those different hats and learning each of those, but also just self-discovery. Are there any specific resources or practices or relationships that have helped you throughout that journey for your own personal entrepreneurial journey to develop into the business leader that you are today?
For sure. I mean, I think first and foremost, it starts with my partners. We've known each other for almost 30 years now, or we've gone through literally life together. And I think that when you have that type of history, when you have that type of trust, when you have that type of transparency, you can say things to one another that you might not want to hear, but you need to hear. And I think that through that kind of humility and through that transparency and vulnerability, you find a lot of good nuggets of information, of things that, give you a little bit of awareness in order to change your behaviors. Because if you don't know you are a certain way or you behave a certain way, chances are you're going to continue doing what you've always done. And so I feel that, kind of having people around you that you know and trust that are going to be loyal no matter what is first and foremost. A lot of people, that's their family. A lot of people, that's their friends. I think in the business world, you can find mentors as well. As I mentioned earlier, none of us had ever really gotten into this before. So no one had ever worked in a restaurant, let alone really started or tried to scale a business. So we've always surrounded ourselves with people that know more than we do, that have more experience than we do. Finding mentors everywhere we go. We'll talk to anybody. We'll be, very transparent with everybody. And I think that's really allowed us to create industry connections that have helped us blossom. They kind of question why we do things the way we do, find sources for improvement. But yeah, ultimately you can't fix what you're not aware of. So if you can make yourself aware of blind spots through meaningful relationships around you, that's been the best way that I've found that I can really, kind of grow personally. You can read books all the time. You could bury your nose in a book, every day, but a book doesn't give you a whole lot of feedback. Not to say don't read books. I love reading books. It's definitely inspiring. But look for areas where you can get personal feedback, and I think that's the best opportunity for personal growth. It's when you have kind of a coach in your corner giving you feedback on how you can improve.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that transparency was one way that you were really able to connect with people, whether it's mentors or not or whatnot. But why do you think that the transparency is such a key aspect of that?
I think with transparency comes vulnerability, and I think that there's a lot of strength through vulnerability. I'm still working on that myself, to be quite honest. I think it's one of the hardest things is, for someone to do is ask for help. I think that sometimes it comes across as weakness, but really, by humans' very nature, I've found that people like helping other people. You just have to ask for it. And so I think that's kind of where vulnerability comes in. If you don't have an answer, you got to say, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Maybe you can help me find one, or, kind of just leading with openness builds trust. So transparency builds trust, vulnerability builds trust. The opposite of transparency is building walls. And there's really not a whole lot of trust that can be had when people aren't open and honest with each other.
Yeah. And I wonder if a piece of it too is that somebody who's in the position to be a mentor type role, or somebody who could help provide you information that you don't currently have that could really help you get to the next level, whether it's in life, business, relationships, whatever. When they see that you don't know everything, that is encouraging for them to then help give you that insight, because nobody wants to give somebody advice when they already think that they know the answers, and when the likelihood of them actually implementing it, because they're too high on their own stuff, is lower. So I feel like that's probably a piece of it as well.
100%. And I think that's why it comes down to a team. I always reference sports. Last night the Patriots win, but Belichick didn't throw the football. And nor would he win if he had to. But he's a crucial part of the team that can help, create success. And I look at our team all the time, and in much of the same way. We don't all have to be great at the same job. We all just need to be willing to, play a role that benefits the team.
So if you could go back in time and give a piece of advice, that something that you picked up over the past 8 years in this journey with Fusion, and you could go back to, the younger version of yourself who's sitting in that trailer park writing up the business plan for this in Colorado, what do you think you would tell yourself at that stage that could help get you off on the right foot?
Well, that's tough. Don't wait to make a decision. I think that sometimes we found ourselves waiting to make a decision, hoping that time would lead us to the right decision. In reality, I think what I've learned more than anything is making any decision is better than sitting on a non-decision, because the only way you're going to learn if your decision was the right one is by executing on it, right or wrong. And so I think that, personally, if we could kind of move in a way that that we were making decisions and fixing, and improving on the decisions that needed to be improved on, and running with the ones that we really liked, I think we'd have a lot more self-confidence, over time. And that's something that was probably a hard lesson to learn in the early days, something that we're getting better at every day. It is make a decision with the facts that you have, with the advice of the people around you. Ultimately you're the one who has to make the decision, but don't be afraid of the wrong decision, because typically the wrong decision isn't black or white. It's ooh, we didn't see that thing. Let's make some tweaks to that decision in order to get us, to a better position.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely something that I've struggled with a lot personally too. But I think one way of looking at that's helped me is that even if whatever decision I make doesn't result in the optimal outcome, if you look at it as a learning opportunity and a way to get closer to the optimal outcome and to get better and to really leverage that experience for future decisions, then it makes it a lot more digestible to know that maybe you're not making the perfect decision right now, but what this decision is moving you forward and is upgrading the future version of yourself to be able to make the right decision in that instance.
Yeah, one of my mentors always told me, the only way that you learn is to make mistakes. And I grew up never wanting to make a mistake. Who wants to make mistakes? But you really have to experience what a mistake feels like and believe in that you can learn from it to really embrace a mistake. Mm-hmm. And every time I've made a mistake, I've realized, oh yeah, probably shouldn't do that again, or maybe I would do this differently next time. And it's true. He told me that my entire life, but until you experience it, until you go through it, until you feel what it feels like to make a mistake, big or small, you're not going to learn. You're just going to keep doing what you've always done.
Absolutely. So Stephan, for anybody who is just loving what you're saying and they want to learn more about you, learn more about Fusion, where would you point them online to go learn more?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can always reach out to me. I'm Stephan at fusion.com, Stephan at fusian.com. I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. But I would encourage you to look at the brand, go to all the typical social channels, Yelp, go to Instagram, go to Facebook, go to our website, which we're currently redoing, and kind of see what we stand for. But if you ever make it through Ohio, come give us a shot, because I think that what you see online and what you experience in real life sometimes are uniquely different. And until at the end of the day, we're trying to sell the best product that we can. We're trying to prepare ingredients in the best way possible and serve delicious food. And, not yet can you try that through your phone. So until you come into our restaurant and let our team serve you graciously, I think that you could learn a lot about what we stand for. But ultimately, we get the most satisfaction when we see you smile after trying some of our food.
Well, I will say that as I was doing some research for this episode, I wish that I could experience it through the phone because I was definitely getting pretty hungry. And I will vouch for the quality of the food. But just to echo what you said there, if you guys aren't in Ohio and don't make it in the near future, check out the brand online. Check out how Stephan and his co-founders are creating this company that's really driven by that mission. And you'll see that so much of their site and what they stand for is all about the community, sustainability, partnering with schools, doing things that you just typically don't see with young restaurants and companies in general. So it's definitely an inspiration, and there's a lot of future or early stage entrepreneurs who are listening to this. So definitely some lessons that can be learned there, and a lot of takeaways just from this conversation that people can use to implement into their lives and their businesses. So, Stephan, thanks so much for coming on and sharing. It was awesome, man.
Thank you, Brad. Honored to be invited.